And welcome back to the show. So I'm really excited to have a returning guest here today, Cameron O'Brien. So if you guys don't know who Cam is, he's one of the leading experts now in voice AI and how to apply that in your business. He's the founder of BrassHelm, as you guys can see, a company that is developing voice AI at a very high level for business owners. And if you guys haven't checked out our previous interview where we talked about AI in general, which was actually a few years ago, I'm sure a lot has changed, but definitely make sure to check out that in the link below, where you guys can actually see, some of Cam's background and how he's been working in AI. But Cam, man, welcome back to the show. Super excited to have you rejoin us here today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's really great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, why don't we start off just, maybe you can have an opportunity to share a little bit about what you're working on now and some of the things that, you've been involved in when it comes to AI, but specifically voice AI since really the last time we connected.
hmm Yeah, for sure. Just for anyone who's unfamiliar with the technology or new to the world of voice AI, specifically, I would say perhaps phone AI is a good way to describe it. But it's like, or even simply, it's like a chatbot using voice on the phone, right? So, I've worked with organizations doing, essentially building from scratch, and other companies doing 10,000 calls a day. Right. So I've seen a lot in terms of what makes good voice AI, what makes bad voice AI, and then kind of what to watch out for as consumers of voice AI, because it's so present right now and the technology is becoming so good that for short conversations, even smart people who are aware of the technology, it's hard to tell on the phone. So like you may have called your bank, your pharmacy, and the person that answered the phone and connected you to the relevant party was likely artificial intelligence. You may not have even known it. So I think it's my big commitment right now is to kind of spread awareness on voice AI so that because it's so powerful and it's so like any new technology, it can be dangerous as well. We've seen in the United States alone over $1 billion in being scammed away from people, where essentially their grandson calls that they're in jail and they need bail money wired to this number right away, or they're going to be locked up forever, right? So, and people fall for that because based on a 3-second audio clip on TikTok, you can get a perfect voice clone of someone. So there's like these risks and dangers. Back when I was growing up, it was you have a safe word so that, the right person is picking you up from the playground, right? But now it's you have a safe word so you actually know who's calling you if they're asking for money.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super interesting because I mean, we'll definitely dig a little bit deeper into that and some of the security and safety side of things because the technology is developing so quickly. So, from a business perspective, right? So you've been working with, like you said, different companies who are either developing this from scratch or have already kind of have their own version of it. You're just helping them improve it. So from a business perspective, where are you seeing voice and phone AI come in and make the biggest impact for a business in terms of both their efficiency and, of course, their effectiveness in terms of generating profits and revenue.
For sure. I think there's two perspectives that I see businesses take, and there's one that's a really successful perspective, and another one that creates a lot of challenges. And the perspective that creates challenges is the one where I want to replace my human people. And I think that that's the one, and I can see the writing on the wall, especially in larger organizations, more call volume, that there's going to become there's going to come a time in the relative near future where voice AI and phone AI is going to be so prevalent that your average person is going to be absolutely sick of it. And and I think that we're already starting to see that with some kind of video generated content on social media, but people are going to be craving that kind of hyper analog, real human kind of conversations, even if it's on the phone, even if it's just some customer service person at the bank, people will want to have that real conversation. They say you don't know what you've got till it's gone. And when you're talking to AI and you want to escalate to a human and it escalates to another AI, that's where you kind of have those frustrating challenges. So when people come to me and they say, I want to make an AI model that sounds totally real, totally human, and I want to essentially replace my human team, personally, I think that's the wrong approach. especially considering that, if a caller asks, is this AI? You have to say, yes, I'm AI. This is a system. You can't hide that, um, and all that sort of stuff. But then the really good side of things that I think is going to be the really strong and healthy future of phone AI is augmenting your team and supporting your team. So what that might look like is, you have your human callers. For example, in real estate, there's a lot of phone conversations, right? But the thing is that there can be a lot of outbound, and a lot of that outbound results in voicemails, hangups, whatever that might be. So a lot of time is wasted, right? So that's, I think, where phone AI is a great place to be. The dial goes out, the agent says, hey, I'm this person's assistant. I'd love to connect you with them. Are you available? Yes or no? Short 30-second conversation is where I've seen phone AI do the absolute best, where it says, hey, you're available. Yes, you want to talk? Okay, great. We're going to connect you right now. So then the agent or whoever it is gets to have the real conversations of the people that are available and actually want to have the conversation and have the time to speak. And the AI is able to handle that kind of volume across all of the outbound calls. And then the same is true for inbound. So if we're looking at any time that a human is not available, so like if you have the budget for 24/7 human on the line, go with that, right? But a lot of people don't. So if you're at your kid's soccer game or you're at a family dinner and you want something that is a step up from voicemail that's able to take your calls, and if it is truly urgent, override your do not disturb and reroute to you that call so that you are available, then you can do that. And that's how I think phone AI is going to best support us as humans as we kind of grow our businesses and we want to leverage this technology, because I see a future where the kind of businesses that people associate with perhaps luxury or higher end services, you're never going to talk to an AI. It's always going to be a human, no matter what time of day that you call, because people are going to have such a craving for that. And human conversations are going to be associated with more kind of luxury products, whereas people will kind of come to accept it when it comes to more everyday things. But I think absolutely the best way to leverage it right now, and this is high level, we can talk more about technology and implementation and that kind of thing, and how someone who's, just starting out can do that. But ultimately, you want to use it where there is no human available. But when you're implementing it now, kind of envision a future where people will want to have that human conversation. So don't fire your whole team and replace it with AI. The best thing you can do is augment your team and help them be better at what they do best.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's interesting because, previously one of the biggest challenges with voice AI and implementing it is the fact that I think people were skeptical about, having it do outbound calls or outbound usage, right? Most of it was used for inbound or intaking conversations because, like you said, one of the best ways I think AI, voice AI specifically can be implemented is for people who are, maybe an individual operator or have a small team who cannot be on the phone 24/7, even if they're, working another client, right? They can't answer the phone, but they want to make sure that there's somebody there who is responsive immediately. But, like you said, now you can also have it do kind of a similar thing on the outbound side, right? Where it's
Mhm.
able to call more people, not have the full conversation, but be able to essentially, I would say, vet the conversations to make sure
Mhm.
that whoever you're talking to is at least, maybe 30%, 50% interested and possibly moving forward with you as a potential client or customer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing that I would say is that if you're going to do, AI for outbound, it's imagine you have a lead form, lead comes in, it's just important that you have some sort of disclosure that they're opting in to be contacted by an automated system. And then the agent calls them, right, and says, hey, I saw that you filled out this form. Are you buying or selling? What's your timeline? These kind of things, and then transfer the call or book an appointment into the calendar. And the way that I would say it is it's not a miracle system. Think of it like maybe a high school or a college intern that you've brought into your office and you're like, okay, I need you to handle these calls. Over time, it will get better at the calls, but at the outset, you're not going to trust it with your most important calls. You're going to trust the person to make the call. Hey, are you available? Are you looking to buy or sell in 3 months? Yes. Okay, great. Let me transfer you, right? That's how I would treat the agent. Um, And of course, the technology is going to get better and better. And there's going to be that temptation to replace the humans. But I think, I've stated my position on that. But yeah, absolutely. It's great for outbound. It's great for inbound. And it's great if it's amazing if you're a small team. It's amazing if you just have a lot of volume. We talk about database reactivation, lead reactivation. If you have a large database, you can do a large outbound dial to that entire database. And the ones that pick up, book them into your calendar for a human call. And the quintessential example is, it's just you're at an open house, right? You're talking to a client and you're rather than taking that client's time away by constantly answering your phone, you can just trust that there's this system that's better than voicemail, better than, press one for, you know, agent, that's no good either, where it's just going to have that conversation, assure them that their needs are going to be met and that they're booked into the calendar, even for later that day for a quick 5 to 10 minute call. But it's just that they feel looked after, and you can trust that you can give your open house client their undivided attention, or whoever you're doing the showing with, knowing that you have a few appointments kind of populating in your dashboard. You can call them back sooner, but you just know that hey, this person has been looked after, they feel cared for. And even if you're I've seen people that have assistants, but the assistant is also on the phones. And so every human is busy. And it's just a matter of this is the fallback. Instead of voicemail, instead of a deadline, this is just what's there to kind of cover your butt, so to speak, when no one can answer the phone.
Right, especially for high volume businesses, which I think for a lot of real estate agents, that's where they're standing on, right? And unless, like you mentioned, if they're more going to be in a luxury clientele, that's different, right? And you're
Mhm.
offering a different type of service. And now I think it's really interesting that, having that full human experience has become a luxury service, or it's going to become a luxury service, right? Whether if that's in real estate or even a different business as well. And then kind of the AI based agents are going to be kind of the day-to-day more high volume businesses. So, something else I would probably want to get your take on is on the opposite side, right? Aside from, people who are looking to maybe want to replace their entire sales team or entire phone team, have you seen maybe uses of phone or voice AI that have not been effective, whether if it's just carelessness in developing it, whether if it's just, maybe turning some clients off. Have you seen that from, other businesses where they're not using it in either in the correct way or the most effective way?
Yes, for sure. So I think that for anyone who's listening who's familiar with the technology or has been building on some of the more well-known platforms out there, if you Google voice AI or phone AI, a lot of them come up. Um, the job of those platforms is to sell you the dream of really easy to build voice AI agents and that it's going to work the first time out of the box, right? And that's just, how any SaaS company operates, right? They want it to, the marketing is to make it sound really easy and really effective. And to a certain point it is. And I'll give you an example. I worked with a uh, health insurance company in the United States that was doing about 10,000 calls a day, and they had just a really enthusiastic operations manager who went through, the sales funnel of one of these voice AI companies and came out the other end and said, "We need voice AI." So they had an internal sales team that took all the really valuable calls, and then they had a subcontracted overseas um, call center that does all the volume outbound calls. So he replaced that call center with AI, but he hit a ceiling of complexity where he couldn't get the latency or the time from when the human stops speaking and the agent starts speaking to a comfortable level. It was like over a second and a half of time delay. And it's like that, it sounds like dead silence and hangups, are what happens from that. And then it wasn't booking into the calendar correctly. It wasn't doing transfers correctly. So it was like the simple conversation was great, but when you got to that place of wanting it to do the things at scale and do the things correctly every single time, that's where you need someone who just has that higher level of expertise, or who does it full time, right? It's like the same reason why, yes, you can absolutely sell your own house, right? Happens every day. There's FISBOs everywhere, but the truth is, if you want it done right, you want it done effectively, and you want it done at the greatest rate of return possible, it's better to work with a professional, right? So, same thing. So, you can do a lot of the setup yourself, but it's just going to be how how valuable is your time, right? If you're a tech forward realtor and you're maybe in your off season and you have a lot of time on your hands, then hey, dive in, build it out, have some fun with it, get it working. But if you're someone whose hours are so valuable that you want to be out there closing more transactions, then you want to bring someone on that my suggestion, and this is kind of a slight tangent here, but just in terms of how to build this technology. So if you're a business that wants to resell minutes, so if you're an agency that wants to resell voice AI services to other companies, then you need to build the technology yourself so that you have the greatest margin possible. But if you are um, if you're a realtor, if you're a plumber, if you're an HVAC, if you're a dog walker, if your time is better spent doing the thing that makes you money, then it's best to go with someone that has built out the technology already, that has kind of is able to insert it into your business without you having to build it from scratch. Because your cost per acquisition or your cost per close, you can pay more per minute. You can pay more for that service based on the deal value that you close at the end. So that's what I'd recommend. Just in terms of um, people that are, the example, of course, quintessential realtors, fantastic example because typical deal value per deal can be high. And you trace that back to kind of what was the value of every single phone call that they had, then you're going to want to go with someone who has built the technology before. And, obviously, yes, I've built the technology before. Maybe it's a shameless self-plug in a sense, but I have seen people, that I've worked with that have spent hundreds of hours trying to build out a system, and then I fix it in less than 10, right? And I could have done it in less than 20, but it's just a matter of um, if you have more time than money, build it yourself. If you have more money than time, hire an expert.
Yeah, and that's a great point because I think for a lot of agents, and this is, not just for real estate, but probably anybody who's not kind of like you said, very tech savvy or tech focused, with this new wave of AI coming out, everybody wants to build their own thing, whether if that's, building their own voice agent or just using AI to build content or even like vibe coding, right? Building their own websites or apps. I do see a lot of people who, like you said, are being sold a dream that they can build out their own systems, but once they actually start implementing it, right, there's a lot of bugs, there's a lot of issues, and a huge learning curve to try to build something that's even remotely, I would say, professional, right? Maybe it's usable, but it's not presentable in a professional manner that you want to represent your business. So I think that's very important that you mentioned that because you can save a lot of time, and in that you can probably save a lot of money too, especially if you're closing higher volume or higher level of deals, right? That can
Mhm.
be a better return of your time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've spent, 10 hours, almost 10 hours every single day over the last like year and a half just doing voice AI, just learning legacy telephony, integrating systems, just learning agentic coding systems as well, and helping me kind of accelerate the implementation of these systems. So it's like, you know, if I want to buy or sell a house, I'm not going to do it myself. Like I could learn it for sure. I could. Absolutely. I think that there's incredible realtors out there who are very technically savvy that can absolutely run their own Facebook ads and have their own voice AI system and have everything built out. But it's just kind of exactly what you're saying, that this is just the latest in a long line of kind of shiny objects, right? And it's very tempting in a sense because you can, stand up an app in 5 hours. You just kind of tell Claude or OpenAI or whatever it is what to do, and they build it for you. But then you kind of have this semi-working app, and you're like, okay, but what do I do with it? And then you just end up going back to your day job, or you're going back to your business. So really just recognizing that this is just another list in a long line of things. First time, Google SEO ads first came out, first time that, Facebook ads first came out. There's a certain subset of people that want to do it themselves, and that's great. Power to them. But really just continue to kind of focus and dial in on what am I really good at? What have I committed to, and continuing down that path, and then having partners that kind of join you to say, hey, I can deliver on this end of things. I can give you the voice AI, I can give you the phone AI at such a cost where it brings you value, adds value, and doesn't kind of cost you an arm and a leg and tons of hours and all of these things.
Right, 100%. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier too was, some of the things that distinguishes a good voice AI agent, one that's, effective versus, ones that maybe have some bugs or aren't really working out, right? Like you mentioned, one of the things was, delay in response time. But other than that, what are some other things that you would say that would distinguish a very effective, at least to today's standards in terms of what's possible, good voice AI agent or phone AI agent versus one that's either subpar or really not even ready for the market to roll out?
Hmm. Yeah, I think that I would say from a non-technical perspective, what I find most people who don't have a technical background, what they go to, what they want from an agent is for it to sound as real as possible. And from my perspective, from a technical perspective, that is perhaps the worst indicator of whether or not an agent is going to perform well or not. Because typically, what I'll see is that agents will sound just absolutely incredible on a web demo, like on a website or something on your computer. You're talking to it, it sounds great. But as soon as you put it inside of a phone call, people don't realize this, but even if you're talking on a brand new iPhone to an AI agent built on a internet infrastructure, it still has to go through all of these legacy phone lines across the country, across the state, whatever it may be. And because of the nature of the old phone technology, all of this audio has to be compressed from 500 kilohertz down to 8 kilohertz. And that's just, it's audio talk, but it's essentially saying like you need to squeeze this giant conversation into this tiny hole. And when it comes out the other side, the voice is going to sound not nearly as good as it did on the computer. So just kind of recognizing that over time, as data compression gets better, as the technology gets better, absolutely the voice is going to sound better. And just allow that to unfold naturally. Don't try to be the first to get there. Don't try to squeeze it out. It's going to happen. Let it happen. But when it comes to the actual voice agent delivering, just recognize you're not trying to make it sound human. You're not trying to replace a human. You're just getting to a place of, okay, this is a technology right now that can kind of deliver on a promise of booking an appointment, of qualifying a person, whatever it might be, whatever your objective is, and focusing more on um, the person that's calling is relatively smart. They're probably going to know it's AI. So just have it do its job. Don't try to have it sound too realistic because I've seen AI agents where it's tried to sound so realistic that it gets so emotional that it starts just randomly singing on the call. And, I've seen large companies have to roll back models because they've had these kind of essentially vocal hallucinations happening. So the biggest uh, metrics that you're looking at is when you stop speaking, how quickly does the agent respond? That's a huge indicator of success for me. And then are you able to call tools correctly? And calling tools is just a technical way of saying, is the agent able to actually book the appointment? Is it actually able to make a transfer? Because if you think of it like the agent has a brain and it's designed to have this conversation, but it's also meant to listen to, hey, this person has expressed intent to book an appointment. Okay, I got to go and pull up the tool that allows me to book the appointment. But if the conversation's too long, if it's too complex, if too much of its prompt is focused on how to speak expression, then it can lose the context of actually calling the tool, lose the context of the intent to book a call. So by allowing these companies who are, again, spending their full-time hours making the model sound better, let them have the model naturally sound better, and then you can kind of shorten your outputs, shorten your implementation prompts, just like if you're chatting with ChatGPT or you're chatting with Claude in the desktop or Gemini or whatever you're using, the more text you put, the less it remembers from the text you put in. How many times have you prompted ChatGPT with this long amount of text and it's kind of missed half the point you were trying to say, and you kind of have to reel it in and say more and say, no, this is what I meant. You kind of got to fine tune it. So if you give too much to these voice AI platforms, then they get confused and they can't call the tools. So the thing that I say, if you want it to be really successful, you need to keep it simple. You need to keep the outcome simple, and you just give it it's the example of the high school intern again. You don't give them the most complex job. You give them the simple job. They do it well, and everyone's blown away, right? So if you can keep the expectations um, simple, the objective outcome simple, and focus on was the experience of the call good enough that the person felt cared for and looked after, and then is the outcome of the call, are you getting a better close rate? These sort of things. So I know that that's also a very technical perspective. But if you're going to, let's say you're non-technical and you want phone AI, voice AI. So for example, the way that I position my kind of work that I do, there's a project that I'm working on called Bela Helps, and it's essentially just a after hours voice AI for businesses. There's a demo line right on the website, and you can call it and you can hear what it sounds like actually over the phone in real time, and you can book an appointment into my calendar. I'd love for you to show up, but if you use that, but essentially you can call it and you can hear how it sounds on a real phone line, right? So that's the differentiation, is that if you're going to go down the path of either hiring someone to build it for you, hiring someone who has a productized SaaS with a white glove installation, that's what I would recommend most, because you're not paying them to build it from scratch for you. You're paying for access to a system they've already built at some sort of a cost. So that's what I kind of generally recommend, because then you're getting a little bit better than the SaaS platforms out there and a little bit more customized so that you don't have to do the install yourself, but you're not paying too much or hundreds of engineering hours because you want the next real estate voice AI SaaS, whatever it is. So look for something that you can test live over a phone call instead of just a web demo. Because, for example, there's a service out there kind of really amazing to speak to, but it's called Sesame, and you can Google it, and it's kind of really great web-based voice AI, but there's no telling when that kind of emotionality and kind of conversation level is going to be available on telephony because of the compressed audio. But make sure that you're able to test it live over a phone line and make sure that that test is able to do the outcomes that you want it to do for you. And then if you find something that's able to do that for you, like it sounds good on the phone, it sounds good enough on the phone, it doesn't go off topic, it's able to book an appointment, then that is kind of a good indicator of a live real world test that something's going to work for you as well.
Yeah, you know what's really interesting is that one of the things you brought up was the fact that it's not just about what's happening over the phone, right? Like it's not just about what the voice agent is doing over the phone. It's also about what it's able to do on the back end. So you're really thinking of it more of, not like this tool that can talk to people on the phone. You're thinking of more of like hiring like an AI employee, right, who's doing this job, who is not only speaking with somebody over the phone to try to book the appointment, but actually able to successfully book the appointment on the back end. So it's not just doing one thing on the front end, it's also probably more importantly, actually able to book the appointment. And that's I think where a lot of people maybe miss the power of what voice AI agent or a phone agent can do. It's not just, talking with somebody on the phone and saving you time, but it's actually able to go in and book that appointment for you. Just really wanted to highlight that because for a lot of people, I think that's, they do focus so much on, well, how does this agent sound? Or they sound like a human being, or are they showing emotion, but they're missing the bigger point of what they wanted for, which is to book appointments onto their calendar, right, and to increase their lead conversion rate.
Exactly. And that's the thing that I've seen a lot of people miss, especially people who eagerly build it themselves. They essentially, the agent has a conversation on the phone, books the appointment, everything's great, check their email, there's no appointment. They check their calendar, there's no appointment. Well, the agent just hallucinated the whole thing. These agents are built to be helpful and friendly, and they will be so helpful and friendly that even if they can't find the tool to book the appointment, they will tell you if they've booked it anyway. So you got to be really careful with the implementation, the structure, the connecting, how everything goes together. And then there's another layer of compliance and making sure that everything's legally structured correctly because AI laws are different in every state. So it's like the whole thing of like calls may be recorded. You have to say that at the beginning if it's a call recording, but now it's calls may be recorded, and this is an AI agent in some states, right? So it's just getting to the place of where do you really, really want to use it, and where you use it most effectively, and supporting your human team when you do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that part up too, because there is different laws. And I'm sure we'll touch a little bit on that at the end as well. But I want you to have an opportunity to maybe talk a little bit more about what you're working on specifically with BrassHelm, right? You mentioned
Yeah,
one of the things that you're working on, the project that you're working on, which is basically an AI after hours agent that you can plug in to any other any business. So what is it that you're working on specifically with BrassHelm? How are you guys developing voice or phone AI solutions, and how can businesses actually integrate it into their day to day?
for sure. Yeah. So we kind of have two angles here. So BrassHelm is kind of my um, in BrassHelm, I am a fractional CTO for businesses. I go in and I own the technical side of the business because a lot of companies out there, like the examples I've given, where they have these operations departments that everyone wants to put in phone AI, but everyone already has a full-time job, but they don't want to bring on someone full-time hours to own it, own the technical. So I go in there on a part-time basis. I build out the entire system, make sure it's managed effectively. And when you're at a scale of 10,000 calls a day, for example, or you want to build your own SaaS, that's absolutely the route to go. But then for me, my big concern is that not enough small businesses, or and that for me that includes realtors, who are on small teams or solo. Not enough of them are going to be integrating this technology to a degree that they will be able to survive an era of voice AI everywhere, right? It's like to me, there is a massive equivalency here between, or a massive kind of comparison between when the first computers came out to AI today, right? So, and we'll use like the accounting firm example, is that it wasn't computers that replaced accountants, but it was accountants using computers that replaced accountants not using computers, right? So if you're able to put phone AI into your business, and the reason why I say phone AI over any other kind of AI, it is relatively the simplest implementation into a business, because if it's after hours, you just simply on your cell phone set up call forwarding. Just if you don't pick up, it forwards the call to the system. And so that's a low technical barrier to implementation. And phone time is the number one time suck for any entrepreneur, any small business owner, any realtor. So if we can put AI in a non-technical way into someone's business and have it save them a lot of time and build better relationships with their clients, then I think it's really going to help people really thrive in an AI era. Because while I believe that the future is the value of human conversations, there's going to be this massive AI boom in the present and kind of in the near future. So I think I have a big concern right now that not enough small businesses are integrating it where they need it. Because if we look at, it's like someone really needs to sell their house and they don't have an existing relationship with a realtor, they're going to go and they're going to call a realtor. And if the realtor doesn't get back to them fast enough, then they're on to the next one. Right. And this is true for any business. So that's a big concern that I have right now. So having built it out from scratch for so many businesses, helping them optimize their systems from within, I recognize that a lot of these small businesses don't have the ability to bring on a fractional CTO to build it from scratch for them. So having built out so many systems, that's why we launched Bela Helps recently, which is essentially just a after hours voice AI agent for small businesses that essentially don't have a team to answer their phones when they're not available. So solopreneurs, small teams, whatever it might be, single agents. So it's a productized SaaS in that it is something that we've already built, that it's really easy to implement into your business and customize it to do what you need it to do, answer questions, give directions. Maybe there's an open house. You want to give people the directions to that open house if they're calling about it. Book an appointment, transfer the call to you if it's urgent, transfer the call to you if it's your mom, whatever it might be. But, and then kind of white glove, put that into your business in a way that has it be as simple for you as possible and a relatively low ongoing cost that essentially covers the infrastructure and the ongoing management of that system. So I saw the gap in the market. I saw the gap in cost and affordability of the difference between over here doing the kind of embedding myself in a business and building them that custom system. And then on the other side of things, really recognizing a need that is underserved to have something pre-built that can just be plugged in for a much lower cost. So that's kind of the two angles that I'm working right now. That and BrassHelm has been very successful. I'm very grateful for it. But it's not really the thing that is kind of driving me from within. That kind of has me have that kind of in my heart. There's this kind of urgency to make sure that people are using this as effectively as possible, and as and saving them time and making sure that those after hour calls are turning into business and not missed voicemails, and then kind of putting that into a system that's much more affordable over the long term and can help them, you know, save their business from the kind of coming AI boom.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great analogy that you made as well about, how in the beginning where computers are just coming out, people weren't necessarily being replaced by them. Obviously we're we're all here today. Right. The same thing's happening now with AI too. And I do feel like there's a lot of, especially like you mentioned, individual solo agents are doing really well, but they're not necessarily implementing a lot of systems, right? I think this could be a really great place to start for them because
Mhm.
it's plug and play. And I'm assuming you can talk a little bit more about this as well. This would, what you guys are building out will be able to integrate into existing systems, right? No matter how complex or simple, whether if that's just Google Calendar or an existing CRM that the agents are using.
For sure, absolutely. It would be like anything like integrating into your lead system. Leads come in, doing the outbound calling, calls come in. It's it's relatively straightforward for someone like me with my experience to integrate into those systems. Of course, there's no additional kind of fee or anything like that for the implementation. It's just a matter of we can plug it into whatever you're doing. We have the technology, we have the ability, and it's just a matter of the biggest blocker I've seen is a willingness to try this new technology. And I think that that's kind of what's concerning me. And I think that that's the biggest opportunity is just recognizing, well, it's like you have a voicemail, right? And when you're not available, people hit the voicemail and you never hear from them again, or they're a frustrated client or whatever it might be. And just think of it like just a much better voicemail that's able to ask follow-up questions on the call to that person, clarify the reason they're calling and what they might need, and then get them on your calendar so that you can kind of continue to build that relationship and nurture that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the biggest block for a lot of people when it comes to new tech. It's just the fear of implementing it, right? Not knowing what's going to happen. And I think it might be a good place to maybe like for today wrap up the episode. Just talk a little bit about, the future kind of implications and the future kind of security, maybe improvements, right? That we already touched on a little bit, which is, in the very beginning of, when we started our conversation today, we talked about how there's already people who are stealing essentially like people's identities, right, through
Yep.
voice AI, and different things like that. So where do you think, the security side of things are going to go moving forward? Is that something that could be protected against, right? Just as an individual, maybe you're not implementing voice AI or phone AI, but you want to protect your voice or you want to protect your identity. Is there something
Yeah.
that can be done about that? And also on the implementer side, right? How do we make sure that we're not breaking or messing with any, laws or compliance issues that can get us in trouble as business owners?
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, so on an individual level, the best thing, there's a few techniques that you can do to kind of protect yourself against voice AI, especially if you're not sure it's voice AI. The biggest one is you just pause and you stop talking for 5 to 10 seconds. Um, you'll know kind of immediately whether it's a human or not. If it's a human on the other line, they're going to say, "Hello, are you still there? What's going on?" But typically, if you pause with an AI, depending on the model, it'll just kind of wait for you. It'll just wait for you to talk. It'll be very patient, but it sounds kind of inhuman. The other one, of course, is if someone calls asking for a large sum of money, um, all you got to do is hang up and then call them back at the number that you have for them, right? Because then you're going to go to them. And then for family, have a safe word, banana, koala, whatever it might be, something that you decide at your Sunday dinner that hey, if there's some sort of situation going on, this is the safe word, and we ask for the safe word. Um, and then the other thing is to ask the AI agent some sort of off-topic question. How's the weather where you are? What did you have for breakfast today? These kind of things. These really relatable human questions that really trip an agent up. And typically it'll say something like, "Oh, well, I don't really talk about that. I like to stay on topic, so let's talk about this." But if you had breakfast, typically you got to think like the people that are training these AI models, what are they not thinking of? And it's, what did you have for breakfast today? It says, well, I don't eat. I'm an AI model, whatever it is. But legally speaking, if it's a real business, it has to disclose that it's AI. So as you ask it, it'll say it. It's built into the models. It doesn't have to be prompted. That's how it is. But if it's for nefarious purposes, then it'll try to hide the fact that it's AI, and that's kind of how you can use those different things, the simple things that you can do to confirm that. And then in terms of protecting identity, it's a matter of, talking to your bank, talking to your pharmacy, whatever it might be, just asking, is my voice being used for voice ID, right? That's something that a lot of banks have now, is that you don't need to identify yourself on the phone. They just identify yourself based on your voice. So you can opt out of that kind of stuff. So that's something that I would encourage people to do. That's what I do, just because, we hear about how data is super safe, and then all these companies have, leaks and data leaks and hacks and all these things. So it's like it's going to happen. So it might not be your bank. It could be your bank. So it's just a matter of, recognizing that no data is completely safe and secure everywhere. So having those kind of opting out of those systems, sure, but then also having those kind of human elements, those safe words, those hang up, call back, these kind of procedures that you have, simple things, just um, that can't be hacked, so to speak, because the of any big company, and this is just an example I'll give that relates specifically to kind of protecting yourself from voice AI. The biggest vulnerability from any big company to hacks is not technology, it's social engineering. It's convincing an engineer that works at that company to accidentally give you access to their computer. I just need to send an email to my wife, my cell phone died. Can you help me? I just got to do this. But then you've kind of given them access. They buy you coffee, whatever it is. So social engineering, hacking humans, is the most effective way to break into a large organization. So when it comes to individual people, you taking ownership of the conversation you're having, not letting the stress get you in the moment of, hey, someone I know is calling for me, asking for money, whatever it might be. You instead just, say, hey, I'm going to call you right back. Hang up, call them at another number. Hey, are you in jail? Are you okay? Whatever that might be. And then and just recognizing that, just don't let the emotions get a hold of you, because the classic scam was, just someone called you and it's the IRS, or it's, the tax agency, and you owe all the taxes, and if you don't pay it right now, we're going to take your house. Oh, and they're a little bit stressed, and but imagine it's the voice of someone and they're in trouble, and so that's the kind of next level of that scam. So that's something to be aware of in terms of protecting yourself, protecting your wallet, and then protecting your identity. And then to your other question about laws, that's a super tricky thing, because like I mean, it's so interesting being in the voice AI space now. Half of my time is just studying laws and staying up to date on laws. So for example, I've had a lot of people ask me, and it's I acknowledge the eagerness, but I've had a lot of people come to me and say, we have this amazing idea for an outbound sales agent. Okay, we've scraped this list. We're gonna call this list, and we're gonna be like, okay, we gotta, and then it's like the most perfect, amazing cold calling agent every time. And you're absolutely right, of course, except AI cold calling is illegal, right? And a lot of people don't know this, and it's fined over $1,000 per call per instance. So it's just a matter of, and they're really hard up on these calls. And essentially, it started from just robocalls, just pre-recorded dials going out to people. But Congress determined that AI calls are the same as robocalls. So that's something to be aware of. That any kind of cold outbound with AI, you can't do it. Same thing if you have an opt-in form on a landing page. Someone opts in and you have specifically a blurb that you're opting in to be contacted by an automated system, that expires. That intent or that notice that or permission expires depending on the state that you're in. Um, as I said before, some states you have to disclose right away, hey, this is AI calling. Or if someone asks, you have to say this is AI calling. You have to say calls may be recorded, calls may be transcribed, calls are used by AI, and you have to have all these ridiculous disclosures at the beginning of the call. And in my opinion, a lot of these laws and regulations are there to discourage people from using the technology. So just recognizing that, you know, everyone, when they call their bank or whatever it might be, it always says this call may be recorded. So just recognize that it's okay to say it's part of the process, and it's good for the technology. Um, but that's the other thing, is that when it comes to this, like, I'll give the example of, if I'm going to buy or sell a house, there's so many laws and legalities to navigate when it comes to land, to um, you know, land rights, is there an easement on the property, whatever it might be. And it's like, I don't know all those things, and I don't know for sure that I'm going to be able to navigate them. So I want to go to an expert that does that. And the scary thing is right now is anyone with a ChatGPT subscription is an expert in real estate, right? So, or really an expert in everything. So, but the thing is that it's not, it hallucinates, it gives you a complete answer, even if it can't find the answer because it wants to be helpful. So these are things when it comes to laws, regulations, compliance, especially if it's like any kind of HIPAA compliance. I know that's outside of real estate, but any kind of medical type stuff, you got to be really, really, really careful. And for me, I would go to a professional when it comes to real estate because there's so much to navigate. So many different municipalities have different laws, different, even just rural areas are different than city areas. So it's just a matter of just being very careful and mindful with that because you don't want to get stuck in something that you can't get out of, and you don't want to be in a position where the way that the laws are structured is that the phone provider isn't accountable. The VAPI, retail, Bland, whatever company it might be, is not accountable. The end user is accountable. So if your system, if you're accidentally making compliance errors and you get a complaint, then you are solely liable for anything that happens. So that's the warning that I would give is that not to scare people away from using it, but just recognizing if you are going to build it yourself and if you're going to implement it yourself, just make sure you know your laws inside out. Maybe you've talked to an AI about it. That's great. Also talk to a professional about it. Also talk to a lawyer about it. Just someone who understands maybe the case law a little bit different than the actual book law, because that's also different. But just just being careful and mindful of the implementation of this new technology, because the older generation, and I'm not saying everyone, just generally the older generation is really, really resistant to this technology, and they just happen to be in government right now. So there's the laws are kind of structured around that fear of the new thing. So and I know there's a lot of very tech forward, boomers out there. I'm not saying everyone, but that's kind of the thing to watch out for when it comes to laws and regulations around phone AI.
Yeah, yeah, and those are very important points, I think, especially if you're, from a business owner's perspective, if you even know how to build out, the technical side of things, but you're just not like familiar or careless about the compliance side of things, that's another great reason to consult a professional, somebody who's doing this on a daily basis, who's staying up to date with these things, because like you said, you could be building out the best voice agent, the best phone agent, but whatever it is that you're trying to do with it is completely against compliance, and you could get in, a lot of deep water with that. So,
For
Cam, I
sure.
just want to say thank you for taking some time and sharing your value and your knowledge on phone AI and voice AI with us here today. And for anybody out there who's watching or listening to this that want to get a hold of you, that want to consult a professional like yourself, what are some of the best ways for people to reach out and to just learn more about what you are building?
For sure. Yeah. The best place right now is going to be LinkedIn. It's where all the number one professionals connect. LinkedIn, and you can just look up the phone AI guy is
Mhm.
what you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can book an appointment with me on LinkedIn. The appointment's free. Happy to chat. If you have a system that you're working on that you want some help kind of tweaking, happy to go over it with you. No problem. I love talking about that kind of stuff. But at the same time, if you have more money than time and you want to implement it for your business, I can help you with that too.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make sure to leave your LinkedIn profile in the description in the show notes below. But other than that, before we let you sign off, just wanted to see if you have any other last pieces of advice, just any last tidbits you want to leave with us here today.
For sure. Last tidbit, and this is going to be something that's going to protect you and carry you for the years to come. Have a funny, safe word with your family so that
Mhm.
if you are ever the victim of some sort of a clone voice calling you, especially if you're someone like I know a lot of realtors out there that make a lot of great social content, your social content being out there, and realtors are unique in that they also post pictures of their family, this kind of thing. So then you can you have this content that really builds that relationship with your audience, but it's also you could be the victim of a scam where it's not you, the technical savvy person that's getting the call that sounds like your wife, it's your wife getting a call that sounds like you. So if you can have that funny safe word established, it's going to protect you and your family into the future, anytime there's voice AI involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Very helpful, Cam. Thanks again for being on the show. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you in the next show.